Welcome to Your Family Dog, a podcast dedicated to helping families love living with dogs.
Welcome back to the Your Family Dog podcast. I'm Tina Spring, and today I'm joined by my smart and pretty co-host, Julie Fudge-Smith, who has just returned from Ireland. Like, I'm so jealous. So today on the Your Family Dog podcast, we're going to talk about some kind of summary updates, and then we're going to talk about culture and dog rearing and how it's different in different countries. Now, this gives all of you the opportunity to chime in, because if you don't live in the US, if you live somewhere that the dog culture is different, we would love to hear from you about what's different and how in some ways those models might be an improvement over how things are in North America. So without further ado, let me bring Julie on.
Hey, Tina. And thank you for that lovely introduction. And we had a great time in Ireland. But before we get into that, we had talked about doing a few updates. The cicadas have not appeared here in Ohio, and
right, I haven't had them either. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, so we were wondering if anybody out there has had this massive cicada invasion. What's it like? And let us know. So please let us know at let's see, what is it? Your Family Dog Podcast at iCloud.com. Okay, then the other thing is the 4th of July. This will be released on the 2nd of July. So the 4th of July will just be in a couple of days. And as a reminder, it's a little probably a little bit too late to start training for the 4th of July, but there are things that you can do to help your dog get through the 4th of July. And we did an episode on that, and we'll make sure to have a link to that in the show notes. So remind yourself to take a look at that so that you and your dog are ready and have a great 4th of July and not a traumatizing 4th of July. One reminder, that is the single biggest day that dogs get lost in the United States is the 4th of July, because they panic from the noise of the fireworks and they take off. So make sure that your dog is in a happy and safe place.
Well, and so I created a email that also includes for every municipality, you can sign a petition trying to get boomless, silent fireworks passed in your community. I didn't know this was a thing, but it turns out in Italy, you can only have fireworks that lack the boom, that are silent, to be kinder to pets and wildlife and people with big feelings about loud, startling noises. I think that's a wonderful thing. And I think that's something they hear in the US. If this is near and dear to your heart, then having the link to the petition makes it super helpful, that it's done by municipality. So you're actually communicating with the people who can help you. And so if anybody wants that email, you can just email the podcast and I'm happy to send it to you. The reality is you're going to have fireworks at least twice a year. So preparing your dog and your family for how to work through this is a kindness that you can extend to them. And until and unless we get to a world where silent fireworks are the norm, I think we're just going to have to learn how to help our dogs be successful, whether that's putting them in the car and taking them for a ride until 2:00 in the morning out in the country where there's no big booms, or whether it's doing conditioning or better living through pharmacology. I think all of those are beautiful answers that are kind to the dog and our neighbors. I've seen, I think, over the last few years, more and more contentious conversation about fireworks. Like, people are getting mad at their neighbors. And while I understand, I also think good fences make good neighbors, right? So we can lead by example of not perhaps jumping our neighbors and being ugly to them, about them celebrating their own way. So for what it's worth, I think getting to a place where we can get boomless fireworks is a good place to go.
I agree. And what's interesting when you were talking about that, one of the things that we did do is this particular trip, we concentrated on Northern Ireland and the north of Ireland. And we were in Belfast. We went to the Titanic Museum, which was very, very good and very interesting. one of the things they were talking about, some of the survivors, and there was one gentleman who had moved to Detroit, and he lived near the old Tiger Stadium. And when the crowds would start to shout and roar, for him, it was very traumatic because it took him right back to the last night on the Titanic. So these loud noises can be extremely difficult and traumatic for people as well as for dogs. So anyway, thank you for that reminder. The other reminder I wanted to give people was that I looked through our past episodes before we got online, and we did several on a wide variety of summer stressor issues, such as water, heat, parasites, ticks and fleas and stuff. So I would also suggest that you take a quick look or listen to those, because they'll give you some good suggestions on how you can make it a wonderful summer and not a stressful summer for both you and your dog.
Yes. So we actually, I had a Moxie, a puppy, came and stayed with us. She's about 7 months old, for about 2 weeks while her family was out west. And she convinced Dovey to get in the kiddie pool.
Good for her.
He had the funniest look on his face. He was like, I don't know why she thinks this is fun. It was very funny. So yeah, I always enjoy when another dog who enjoys water teaches my dogs that do not think water's funny, that water is in fact funny. So
which reminds me of Clementine. We have a wading pool. Yes, sweet Clementine. So we had the wading pool out. I have in my backyard, the previous owner had fenced in a big garden to keep it from the deer. And then we put a fence around the yard. So now this garden is really well protected. So, but outside on one side of it, between that and the 1930s chicken coop, is kind of gravelly. So I put the pool there because it's not completely hard underneath. But if Clementine splashes, we're not going to make as much mud, right? Well, guess what Clementine learned to do? To push down the side of the pool and let the water out and create mud. So I'm like, okay, genius dog. I'm going to put the pool in the enclosed garden on the gravel pad. Okay. So you can just tell what's coming. So I put the pool in there. Everything's fine. Next thing I know, I look and Clementine she has once again stepped on the side of the pool, emptied out the water, and then dug to China in the gravel. And
well, so she couldn't get to the mud.
Well, she did. She got to the flood. And then it flooded at the door to the garden, where it just stood with the grass met the gravel. So we had an interior inside the enclosed garden mud hole and one right at the gate mud hole. That dog was as dark as coffee, and she's a white dog. But we had a really good time. So now Clementine can only go into the pool under direct supervision. And the other day when my grandkids were over, we took the pool outside of the fence underneath a shady tree. Clementine was inside the fence, and Zuzu was allowed to play in the pool with the kids. So anyway, yes, wading pools are great fun. And, it's especially fun when you can let the water out and make mud.
I would be trying to figure out, like, okay, so how can we put this to good use? Like, can she mix potting clay?
Well, if it would be of use, she would be of no interest in it. She would have absolutely no interest if it were a practical thing to do. Clementine is all about the impractical. Anyway, so I'll post a picture of her after her little mud adventure.
I mean, it's absolutely worth it. So I had said to the family, Moxie's owners, like, listen, she's disgusting. Like, she's not even just dirty. Like, we've moved to a whole new level of dirty. Like, her bones are dirty. So he's like, oh, she doesn't look too bad. And then he took her home and bathed her. And he was like, holy moly. It was like, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the persons on the Clumber page said, oh, just let it dry and they'll fall right off. And I'm like, yes, it will. But then I will have half of my garden in my kitchen.
Okay. So Right. You're missing some steps. So you put them in the crate to dry off. When they're dry, you take them outside and you brush them off. You don't just let them wander around your house dropping dirt everywhere. But it actually, and then you can bathe. Like, so we learned with Dalmatians, like let them dry off, brush the dirt off, then assess, do they need a bath? Because if you just add water to mud, you're just making more mud. They don't
The
really
only
get
thing
clean.
is that with that long hair, Clemmy takes forever to dry off.
Yes.
So we have a walk-in shower on the first floor with a dog nozzle, and we just marched her right in there and
And your
cleaned her
drain's
right up.
filled with silt.
Not too bad, actually. Not too bad.
Okay.
So
Good luck. Good luck
yeah,
with that.
it worked. It worked. It worked. So okay.
Okay.
So enough of the ill-behaved Clementine. Because I would say in Ireland, one of the things that I had noticed on my prior European trips is that dog culture is very different in Europe than it is in the United States. And having we spent a full month in Ireland, and we traveled all over Northern Ireland. And so we saw a lot of different dogs in a lot of different places, but there were some real unifying themes. One of the things that I told Tina that I thought was really interesting is I did not see a single stray dog. And we were in cities, we were in the countryside, we were at the beach, we were hiking in the woods, we were all over. And I didn't see a single stray dog. Saw a lot of dogs, but none of them were stray. And I thought that was really very interesting. But the other thing, though, that I saw was the fact, and the reason why I think dogs are like this, we'll get to. All the dogs that we saw when we were out walking, whether it was on the Salt Hill Prom in Galway, or it was in the woods in Cong, or whether it was along beaches in Northern Ireland or wherever, all these dogs were so attuned to their owners that the vast majority of dogs were off lead, but under complete control. And there were dogs that were on lead, but in general, they were younger dogs or older dogs. And what we found is that I remember walking along the South Hill Prom, and there was this great border collie, just gorgeous dog. And his owner had a ball, and the dog, he could throw that ball, and the dog would go and he'd grab it and he'd turn and he'd look at it, and then he'd throw the ball to his owner, right? And then the owner would grab the ball and throw it. And this dog would dash into the weeds, come running back. And if the owner was down the trail, he just kept right up with him. And there were lots of other dogs. That dog paid absolutely no attention to the other dogs, to the strangers, to the activity, to the bikes, to the strollers, to the kids. He was focused completely on his owner. And it wasn't just because he was a ball obsessive border collie. I saw this on dogs all over Ireland, on cliff walks, wherever we were. And what we usually found was these dogs that were off lead, their owners were very relaxed, walking, talking with the people that they were with, but they always had their dog in the periphery. I was watching them and they knew where their dog was. And if their dog would bound over into the woods or into the field and come back out and look around, it only took a short whistle or just one look from the dog, and boom, they were off and with their people. And it was just really delightful to see, because these dogs would come up and they maybe look at you, but it was kind of in passing, like, oh yeah, it's another person, off we go. And I might say hi, and they'd look and they'd just keep going. There was no stranger anxiety. There was no anxiety over other dogs. There was no anxiety over bikes, moving objects, noises. And I think it's because these dogs have been incorporated into public life from the get-go. We saw young dogs on lead, but they generally were young dogs who were learning, to be out and about in public. But even some of the young dogs were off lead and stayed with their owners. And we saw lots of dogs in pubs, in hotel lobbies, in restaurants, sitting outside in cafes. There was one, we went to Rathlin Island, This woman had her dog, so he sat with us. And he sat with me for a while, and he sat with Brad for a while, and then he sat on the table for a while, and then he sat with the owner for a while. And she was so apologetic that he stepped on the table. And I'm like, he's on a boat with a whole bunch of people, this funny motion, and he's doing great. It's not a big deal that he stepped onto the table and then back into your lap. So, I mean, we really literally saw them everywhere.
So I think it's that this idea, I think that people really, really misunderstand what socialization is. The socialization isn't touching.
Yes, yes.
Right? And sometimes it's touching, but it's not always touching. And so I work a lot, here in my classes to try to get to a place where the members of a class are helping each other and helping each other's dogs. So Annalise went to Ireland after she earned her PhD. And the big thing she noticed was like, if somebody had a bouncy, kind of outwardly focused puppy, people would cross the street to help the handler and the puppy focus on the handler, right? That there was like this community nod of, oh, yes, you're in the thick of it with an adolescent puppy. We're going to move over here and make it easier for you to be successful with your puppy, because we know you don't want all the crazy greeting behavior. The other thing that amazed her was she actually went to a dog park, even though she didn't have a dog with her. And the dogs don't play with each other. They play with their handler. So she's like, you could have 15 dogs at the dog park. The dogs are not playing with each other. They're playing with their family. She's like, now, if it's a family that has 2 dogs, then yes, those 2 dogs might be playing together, but they don't go and bother another dog or another handler. They don't go and do that. And I think we've taken the idea of socialization, we're going to have to come up with a different word, to a really unkind, unhealthy, highly aroused level. I think we expect dogs to put up with all sorts of handling and greetings by people when we wouldn't, if it was just us. Right? Like I think about going to the grocery store, like I might have conversation with one person. I might make eye contact with 3, maybe on a bad day. Most of the time I'm just in and out doing my own thing, right? I'm definitely not playing the people I run into randomly at the grocery store. So I think sometimes we expect dogs to be even more social than we are.
I would agree. And one of the things that I really did notice is that all of these dogs were very comfortable. It's not that they were uncomfortable with strangers or that they didn't notice them. It's just they weren't necessary. And I think sometimes what happens is that we forget that we have agency with our dogs. And one of the things I used to remind my clients of, especially when they had dogs who were shy, and we would go and we would just sit on a park bench, like away from the crowd so we could watch people and give treats and just notice the world and stuff.
Yes.
But
I wish we could normalize not touching everybody else's dog.
Right. And one of the things I told people is that I am giving you permission to tell people you can't touch my dog. Somebody comes charging over and your dog's like, I don't want to talk to him. You have my permission to step between your dog and that person, because your dog does not need, nor does it want to be touched by every person. And you have the right and the ability and the privilege to say, not this time, not now. And I think, when I would talk to dogs in Ireland and I'd say, oh, hi there, you're really cute. And they just kind of look at me and the owner would smile and we'd just go on our way. Nobody said, oh, would you like to pet him? And when one of them did run up to me and want to be petted, I kind of laughed. Brad and I pet the dog, and the owner just was very nice and just like, yeah, and then we're moving along. And I just thought it was brilliant. And one of the things that I had found is, now Zuzu's a little bit older now. She's going to be, Sizzles, you're going to be what, 9? 2005? Yeah, she's 9 this summer. But one of the things that she's really been good at is, she's very bonded to me, but like Clementine, as we all know, Clementine's a challenge. I can't let her out of the unfenced area. I have her on a long line. She drags a long line around so that I can grab it, make sure she doesn't take off. But Zuzu in general will stay with me. Just a whistle or two and she's with me. And like yesterday, she and I were putzing around and she was just walking by my side. And I think that we don't encourage that behavior quite enough. So one of the things I started doing even more with Zuzu is if she's by my side, I'm talking to her. Oh, Zuzu, yeah. Hey, what do you think? We're going over here, or we're going over there. So that yesterday she's right by my side and we're talking and I look up and there's a bunny in the bushes. She does not see the bunny. I'm like, okay. So I just gently grabbed her collar and said, we're going to go this way, sweetheart. And drove her inside with nothing happened, which was exactly what I wanted. I wanted her focused on me and calm and happy and that I could notice something and move her away from it without issue. And I think we can do that more than we think we can. And I think it comes with, as you said, understanding that socialization is about getting my dog comfortable in the environment in which we are going to exist and environments that we are going to, to be a part of. And learning that focusing on me and paying attention to me is really what's going to keep you safe and happy.
Well, I think here in the US and even in Canada, I get a lot of pushback that people are like, well, then my dog, is going to be barking at other dogs and barking at other people. And my experience is that dogs that we've used this method of like, no, you need to pay attention to your handler, they're not frustrated because they're not reactive. Like they're not worried about that other dog. So if the other dog's barking at them, they're like, whatever, some dogs bark, right? If the person doesn't want to meet them, the dog's feelings are not hurt, right? You don't get those frustrated greetings that so often happen, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so it's always a really good reminder. So Dovey, when he came to us, he's always been social, but he never asked to go say hello to people. And I think some of that wasn't that he was worried about them. Like he likes everybody, but it wasn't encouraged when he was younger. Well, now, I'm the dog trainer and I'm at class. So everybody's like, can I say hi to him? Can I say hi to him? And I say, yes. Well, yesterday I saw a little glimmer of he's thinking about jumping on strangers, that he wants to say hi to them and mug them a little bit. And I'm like, okay, you are too big a dog to do that. So I'll go back to no, right? He has to keep his feet on the floor and not greet everybody. And I can do a lot of that off-site, right? I don't have to do it in a class, but just stop letting him greet quite so often so that he settles back down to being patient, hanging out next to me while I'm out walking.
What I found with Bingley was that Bingley liked people and he was very comfortable with them. He just wasn't particularly interested in spending a lot of time with other people. Like if we were out for a walk, Zuzu wants to meet everybody and lean up against them. We don't go out for a walk, we go out for a lean, right? And but Bingley was very happy to be by my side or go play ball or whatever. And he, especially when we had Buckley, the burner, everybody wanted to pet Buckley and he was happy to do that. And Bingley would hang back by my side and he was quite happy to watch the whole affair and just hang with me. And then people will say, oh, I'm so sorry. I missed you. I didn't see you there. And I'm like, it's fine. He's fine. I'm fine. I think that people also, I sometimes wonder if people don't have, oh God, this is going to sound terrible. And I don't really mean it terrible. I don't just know how to say it. If people aren't that invested too much in themselves and in the idea that somehow or another they're important to every dog. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I have to go pet this dog. Why? Why do you have to pet that dog? Does the dog really need it? Or is it you? Or do you think that the dog really needs you? I mean, I think sometimes people are too invested in connecting with every dog. And I think that's a little ego-ish. Did I say that
Great.
right?
Right. So I think normalizing a place where our dogs hyper focus on us and less on everyone else doesn't make them fearful of strangers or reactive about strangers or other dogs. I'm gonna float the argument that actually all the quote socialization that's actually not really socialization, it's I don't know, it's a rave, does cause the problem, right? If our dogs are raised in puppy classes where most of the time they just get to play, well, then they're going to have an expectation that every time they see another dog, that means we immediately start playing. If we set dogs up that everyone handles them, they start to assume, like, no, 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 everybody has to say hello to me while I'm out and about. And I don't think that that's what we actually want to teach them.
You know, I'm coming more and more to that point of view. I'm beginning to think that, yes, I think you're really right. Taking a step back from what I used to think about socialization and now what I've seen repeatedly in Europe is I think you were spot on. And that's not to say that your dog shouldn't meet people and shouldn't be touched and shouldn't have a wide variety of experiences. It's just that not every person has to touch your dog and not every dog has to greet your dog. My dogs are really, really good at walking by other dogs that are just going bananas. And, but there are times when they stop and they go, oh, I would really like to meet that dog. And then I'm going, okay, if that dog wants to meet you, that's fine with me. They don't ask very often for that.
I'm going to go back to this example of like you're at the farmer's market or you're at the grocery store or you're, I don't know, putting gas in your car. How many people do you even acknowledge? Like, one, how many people do you ignore? How many people do you acknowledge? How many people do you greet? And how many people do you have greater interaction with? And I think if we looked through that lens for how to help our dogs, we can actually put numbers to that, right? That I want my dog to notice other people and for that to make good things to happen, right? So an excellent tool for that is Leslie McDivitt's Look at That, right? Then we have Suzanne Clothier's 1, 2, 3 greeting game, where the dog gets a 3 count to say hello and then we're calling them out, right? So there's the next level. And then, more often than not, they're not playing with other dogs. The same way that more often than not, we're not touching other people. So that we still have them fluent in the skill. Like, I don't want them to be concerned about new people, but I don't want them to think that everybody's touching them. Because I think that's how you get a dog who's concerned about new people.
I think you're on to something, because the other thing is I would say that the dog who is comfortable seeing people in a wide variety of situations, who's comfortable with seeing other dogs in a wide variety of situations, and who can pick and choose who I want to say hello to, either human or canine, right? I would argue that that dog actually has more confidence and more assurance and probably feels safer. And if your dog safety is such an important thing, dogs don't view the world in like philosophical terms. They view it in terms, is this safe or not safe?
Definitely not Clemmy.
Everything's safe for Clemmy. Anyway, so I think it's one of those things that if your dog can say, I know that when I'm out with my person, I'm safe. I don't have to talk to every person. I don't have to talk to every dog. She's going to protect me from those that make me uncomfortable. And she's going to let me talk to the ones that I do like. Then I can relax and be who I am and be connected with my person and play ball. Oh, there was this one puppy. Oh my God, I almost stole it and brought it home. It was so cute.
Was it a Westie?
Anyway,
totally a
no,
sucker
but I
for
did
Westies.
see a really adorable Westie. We saw lots of terriers, but this little guy, yes, he would run up and he'd get down in a crouch, he'd look at his owner, and then he'd start wiggling, just twitching, right? And the owner would lift up the ball and throw it. And he'd run and he'd get the ball and then he'd roll it to his own and he'd go slap back
Oh,
and
how
down into
cute.
his. Oh, it was so cute. It was so cute. Brad and I were just enchanted
Stitches.
by
Like you
this
just
dog.
enjoy watching them
Yes.
and go, I want that.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
it's interesting because my first lesson, my first appointment today is a 9-year-old dog who has started becoming more and more having big feelings about strangers and other dogs. And so we talked about a whole bunch of stuff, but one of the things I started was the look at that game. Like, can you look at this? Can you look at that? And we even did it for sounds because he's a little bit sound sensitive. So I'm like, ooh, did you hear that? Right. So the same thing, I'm pointing out things that are happening in his environment and he's being reinforced. He's being classically conditioned that those things make good things happen. I'm relaxed. His owners are relaxed. He can relax. And hey, there's a little bit of, freeze-dried pork for you. So interestingly enough, when we went to walk him out of the store, I went with them because I was going over to the Kroger to grab my lunch and I had treats with me, right? So there were a couple of things that happened on the walk out to the car that normally Teddy would get quite worked up about. He didn't. He just looked at the thing and then looked at me. And I said, you're doing a really good job. I saw that. That was a big, scary truck, wasn't it? Right. We just could walk through it. And the owners turned and looked at me and they were like, this is amazing. Like, we can't do this with him. And I'm like, well, he's doing it now. Right. So I think there's a little bit of, I don't know, if I threw a party for all the girls at my house, it would not be like if I threw a baby shower, there's something that would never ever happen at my house. So if I threw a baby shower at my house, I would totally expect Chris to hide. He'd be there for the food and then he would.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because he'd be like estrogen poisoning. Like, and Chris loves everybody. He's very social, but like me, he's also a social introvert. And he will just like politely sneak off to the bedroom and read his book and just come out when he's ready for a sandwich or dessert. Right. And it's not that he doesn't like anybody. He doesn't want to be in the way. He doesn't want anybody to feel awkward. And his people tube gets full. I think I see a lot of dogs whose people tubes or other dog tubes are just full because they're constantly being expected to do this thing that's kind of uncomfortable for them. Where if we said, hey, you know what, you can just look at them and ignore them, and I'm good with that. But if you want to say hi, then you can give me other signals that that's what you want to do. I think just that change culturally would be a biggie.
I agree. One of the things I was thinking about when you said that this dog was 9 is I think one of the things that we forget about our geriatric dogs is that as they get older, sometimes they do become more sensitive to noise and sights. And, like dogs tend to become more thunderphobic as they age. And so I think one of the things that we forget is that my dog at 9 is not the same dog he was at 4. And that things are going to happen and things are going to change and that new things may be harder for him to absorb. And I have to pay attention to the fact that he's aging a bit. I was going to say one of the things is like when the day we got back from Ireland, my younger daughter said, Mom, we got a chance to go to the beach for 2 days. Can you take Rosemary for 2 nights the day we get back? And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. So my other son-in-law picks us up and he says, our air conditioning is broken. Can Ellie and the 5 kids come over and spend the night tonight because our apartment's 87 degrees? And Brad and I said, okay, we haven't put the AC units in yet, but we'll do that when we get home. So we get home from our trip, we're putting in AC units, we get an extra dog and 6 extra people in our house. And our dogs haven't seen us for a month. So it was a bit of a challenge, not a bad challenge. It actually worked out really well. But what I would say is what I find is really interesting is Zuzu and Clemmy love the kids and they love having them there because the kids play with them, play ball with them and stuff. But I always know Zuzu's like at the end of the night, she's like, Mom, let's just go to bed. I need to lay down and I need a break. And so like if I'm in my office, she'll come in and wander in with me. And so I think one of the things that we need to remember is that if our tubes fill up, our dogs do too. And we need to give them opportunities to decompress, which means you're not out and about for 3 or 4 hours at a time. You're out.
And frankly, I mean, I even forget how much sleep dogs need, right? Like Dovey came to work with me yesterday. And so he was here, the better part of 12 hours. By the time we got home, thank goodness I fed him while we were here, because by the time we got home, I think he would have fallen asleep in a food bowl and drowned. Like he was so tired. It was hard to get him up this morning because he's used to sleeping all day, right? He sleeps all day, he sleeps all night, and then he plays, when we're in the morning and he plays in the evening and gets his yayas out that way. Well, he helped in every single class yesterday and he got a bath because he was disgusting. So I was like, this is like, you're disgusting. No one can touch you. So you need a bath, which probably used up some of his bandwidth too. He never got grouchy. He never got rude. He just was tired. And you could see he was tired. So I think like if I was still at an age where I had kids home for the summer, oh my goodness, Dovey would be exhausted, right? Because he wants to do all the cool things. He wants to play all the games. He wants to do the training. He's very social. He's a young, athletic dog. But even a young, athletic dog needed more sleep than he got yesterday. So he didn't come to class today. I might bring him tomorrow, right? Because he'll have today to sleep. And then, tomorrow I'll exhaust him again. And then I'll have a nice, quiet Friday. So there's just a little bit of, and he was, mostly he played with puppies, which he really likes. But again, he's not used to playing all day for a living. It's like a professional uncle yesterday.
So I guess what I was thinking about is how does this apply to the European model? Is that I think what we would see is I think these people, their dogs are with them all day, and then they take them out for an outing, and they do something really fun, and then they probably go back home, and the dog probably sleeps. I saw just one. I don't think I saw a single overweight dog. These dogs were all in very good shape. Okay. And of course, maybe all the fat ones are home. I don't know. But what I know is that maybe.
So you're talking about a lower population, right?
Right.
With lots and lots of green space.
Yes.
Right. So lots of hiking trails, lots of biking trails, lots of walking trails. Yes. And if everyone else's dog is ignoring your dog, it makes it easier for your dog to do, right? If people have the expectation that they're not going to touch other people's dogs, that makes it a lot easier for you as a handler, right? If people have a bouncy, exuberant puppy and you cross to the other side of the street to help their puppy focus on them, that is a kindness. That's not rude.
Right.
But it's going to require a much bigger shift. And I'm going to tell you, I really think how socialization has been misunderstood in North America has really cost a lot of dogs their lives, because a dog who maybe was marginally social before, now having it forced on them, well, they might get better at it or they might get worse at it. Right. And then you add in like all the mindsets of like, oh, we have to punish the dog, like not us, not you and I, but the people who are like, oh, we're going to punish the dog for barking or growling. He has to learn to do what I say, like all that. You add all that garbage to it, and we start to, I think, break dogs a little bit.
Yeah, I think then we end up with traumatized dogs, and trauma comes out in a wide variety of ways. And trauma, if it's not resolved, just increases in intensity and severity.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say now, Colleen had this scavenger hunt for socialization. And what I liked about it wasn't necessarily having your dog out and about to meet 1,000 people, but it was also like substrates. Make sure your dog experiences grass, tarmac, cement, gravel, sand, mulch, so that your dog gains confidence in a wide variety of situations. And in the process of experiencing these different substrates, or watching a lawnmower, or a snowblower, or a bicycle, or a tricycle, or a wagon, all these things that Colleen suggests your dog see, you are also going to see a wide variety of people, some of whom are going to say hi to your dog, some of whom are not. And I think that if you think about, I want my dog to be comfortable in a wide variety of situations and to experience a wide variety of things, so if you focus on that aspect of it, the various substrates and seeing the different things in action, you will also teach your dog, yeah, it's a lawnmower. Look at me, have a treat. And yes, look, it's a bluebird or a robin hopping around the yard. Wait, I'm glad you saw the bird. Look at me. And yes, sand feels funny in our toes, doesn't it? Here's a treat. Your dog's also going to see a whole lot of people, but it's also going to learn all these new things that I encounter. I'm safe because I'm with my mom. And you know what? I get a treat for experiencing mulch. And so, that's great.
Well, and okay, so again, I'm going to keep pounding the socialization thing. We don't teach our children. It's so fascinating to me. We teach our children to avoid strangers.
Yeah.
And to not take candy from strangers, like, sweet, for goodness sakes, for the love of Dan
Right.
Matthews. Right. So, why would we do the opposite with our dog? What is that in the human brain that we're like, no, I want my dog to tackle everyone they meet? Like, what are we doing?
Right.
I mean, not that I want my dog to have stranger danger. My dog needs to go with the vet tech. My dog needs to be okay with the pet sitter. My dog needs to be okay, with the groomer. But I don't think that I think that we have misinterpreted. And this, by the way, this is at the feet of dog trainers. This lays at the feet of dog trainers.
Because I think I did it wrong for years. I mean, but the fact is that I also think too, there's got to be a balance in there. We also don't want our dogs in their first 16 weeks of life
to not meet anyone.
Come on, meet 3 people. That's also not sufficient.
Right. That's also not okay. Exactly.
Right. So I think that you're right. I think that we saw too many dogs who were terrified because they had no positive experiences with people, places, things, substrates in the first 16 to 20 weeks of life, because they were told stay home because, your vaccines aren't good until then. So but we're trying to find the balance between that and over socialization. There has to be a happy medium. And I think perhaps I would say that I probably leaned more towards the over socialization, if for no other reason than the experience I had with a grossly under socialized dog, and who ended up killing a neighbor's dog. And it was just a horrifying experience. And so, for example, with Hudson, we just made sure that he met a lot of people and did a lot of things. He was probably the most social dog I've ever met in my life. And he was great with everyone. But we probably overdid it a bit. So I think that there's got to be a balance in there. And that's why I think I found, as I worked more and more with shy dogs or temperamental dogs, a lot more of the, let's just sit on a bench and have some liver and watch the world go by. And
that's a game
good
changer.
For you.
Yes.
It is.
Well, and also I have a Loyan poodle in class right now who she wants to be more social, but she doesn't like strangers touching her. Definitely not her head. Like, it's not in her gifting. which, so the family was like, hey, this is a problem. Like, we need to work on this. And I'm like, okay, so the way we're going to work on it is telling strangers they're not allowed to touch her. And they're like, wait, what? No, you misunderstood us, dog trainer. Well, guess what? After 2 lessons, she'll approach strangers on her own and she'll let them touch her. She will even ask them to touch her because we stopped forcing on her, having everyone touch her. And I can touch her head all day long, right? I paired it with food. She's like, cool, touch my head. I don't care. Like, it's awesome. I'll touch all. Like, now she will come and jump in my lap, something she really only does with her owners and me. So now, would I want to teach her to do that with everyone? Absolutely not. But if you want to be able to take your dog out in public, they have to be able to ignore a lot.
Yes. Yes.
If they're trying to greet every single dog, every single person, every single bunny rabbit, every single kitty, guess what? You're not going to enjoy your meal because you're going to get dragged all over the place, right? I want them to learn how to settle in activity and just like check in with mom and watch the world go by. That's actually socialization. It's probably the most important socialization we'll ever do.
Well, it's funny because as a homeschooler, people would always ask me, well, what are you doing about socialization? And I was like, I'm not sure you understand the concept. If you mean, am I putting my child into a classroom with 30 other people within 1 year of their life with very little adult conversation, then no. But if you mean, am I preparing my child to function in the world as an adult and to be able to be comfortable in speaking to a wide variety of people in a wide variety of ages, then yeah, I'm doing a pretty good job of socialization because my daughter can talk to adults and is very comfortable with people of all ages because she has not been forced to do something she's not supposed to do. That's not to say everybody should pull their kids from school and do homeschooling, or that all schools are awful. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that with once again, people don't understand the term they throw so loosely around, which is socialization, whether it's for kids or for dogs. They don't understand what you're doing. What you're trying to do is to create an individual who can function effectively and happily and comfortably in the world, whether it's a person or a dog. And how you achieve that will be modified a bit according to the person. Like, I will not necessarily socialize my temperamental shy dog the same way I am socializing my hyperactive, totally social dog.
Well, so there's another example, right? Service dogs don't greet every dog they meet or every person they meet. So why would we? I think we're doing it wrong.
Okay, so what? Now that we've mentioned the problem, I think what can people do now? And I think
in their pocket.
Yes, one
and have a very high reinforcement rate.
Yes, I was going to say, I do not, even with my 2 dogs, my 9-year-old, I do not leave the house with them without a bait bag. I just don't leave without one. And so there's always a bait bag. The other thing is just the very simple, find a park bench that's not smack dab in the middle of everything. Maybe it's, 10 or 15 feet away from the hustle and bustle. Sit on it with your dog and feed treats as the world goes by. And if somebody asks to pet your dog, you can say, not today, we're training. And most people are really nice about that. And it can be very simple. Not today, we're training. And so I think that will help. And that even when you're out and about, like in the yard with your dog, have a bait bag on you. So that whenever your dog, especially if you have like a fenced in yard. So if you've got a bait bag on you and your dog is running off and sniffing and doing that, they come over and check in with you, boom, you get a treat. What you're going to find is that the dog's going to start checking in a lot more often. So I think there's very small things that you can do to reassure your dog, to make sure your dog is more comfortable, and to make sure your dog checks in with you.
I think that's all awesome. Like, yes, I agree.
Okay, great. She says, unmuting herself.
I just wouldn't have everybody touch my dog.
Yeah, that's a really good start.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we don't like telling people no. And I don't know. A lot of times I'm
think
like,
you're
maybe
right.
later, but um, I'm like, no, good fences make good neighbors. Don't try to touch my
Yeah.
dog.
Well, what I used to say, like with Bingley, is, oh, can I pet your dog? I said, well, it's fine with me, but you got to ask Bingley. And if Bingley made a move toward them, then fine, you can pet him. If he didn't, I just say, I'm sorry, apparently we're not feeling social today. Not today. And I
Right, like
think
not right
people
now.
have, not really. You have the right to say no. You have, and I think you have an obligation to say no. So practice saying no, folks.
And to let your dog say not right now. Like, no, thank you.
Yeah. Your dog can say no too. And honor it when your dog says no. And you'll know
Because
your dog will say no because your dog is not going to go up to that person. It's really very clear.
And the more you say you don't have to, the more they will say, this is the weirdest thing, that they'll say, no, I want to.
Yeah.
Like the shy dog
to.
gains confidence by you saying you don't have to say hello. Like it's not your thing. They're like, no, I want to do it.
Okay, then. So,
right? That's a really different place to be. But so now that we've nagged people,
yes,
it's not really that. Please do not take your dog to fireworks.
Yes, do not take your dog to fireworks. So, all right. Well, I think we've done enough haranguing on socialization for today. It's not that socialization is bad. It's just it probably needs to be toned down and
more looking, less touching.
Right. And just working with your dog to make sure your dog is happy and comfortable with what's going on. And if your dog is happy and comfortable and being rewarded for being happy and comfortable, you're probably doing it right. So with that in mind, I would also say too, if you're looking for a great summer read or audiobook for the beach, The Beast Keepers, we have been a finalist in 2 awards. And you can get it on Amazon and Audible. You can get it paperback, Kindle, or Audible. So there's your beach read for the summer, folks. And let me know if you like it. So
no, we love it.
Well,
it's great,
you, Tina. So I wanted to say too, Tina's quilting is very nice. She sent me a hot pad, which is lovely. It's in the center of my dining room table with flowers on it. And so your quilting is coming along quite nicely. I was very pleased.
Thank you.
Very pleased.
I'm in the process of finishing my 3rd quilt.
Good for you. Good for you. I'm impressed.
Having a good time learning it. So
good. All right, then. Everybody else, have a very happy 4th of July, and we'll see you next time on Your Family Dog.
Thanks for listening to Your Family Dog. Got questions? Interesting ideas? Visit www.yourfamilydogpodcast.com to share your thoughts.